Hey everyone, welcome to the discussion today, our last HR Tech Talks of the 2020 calendar year. Oh goodness, it's been such an amazing season, I guess I'll call it, in the last few months of interacting with some amazing people, amazing companies. It's been such an interesting set of conversations, and I've learned a lot. I hope you have as well. We're actually working on a library right now, just behind the scenes. We're working on a library to pull these together so you can go back and find them easily, review, revisit some of the ones that are relevant to the things you want to dive into. I'm about to bring Camel on for the conversation, but if you would like to join in, chime in, just let us know where you're listening in from. Pop a note in the comments just to say hello. It'd be great to hear from you. If you've got a conversation, you got a question today as we're chatting back and forth, feel free to drop that in. I love making the show interactive. I love being able to give the guests some questions and things beyond just what I've thought through and prepared in advance. So I'd love to have you part of this as well. Either way, excited for the show. So I'll go ahead and bring on my guest for the discussion. He is president of Eightfold. Welcome, sir. Good to have you.
Hi, Ben. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, I am glad to have you here. So it's going to be a good conversation. We're going to chat about AI skills and hiring and all kinds of fun things like that. But before we get into the meat of the conversation, would you do me a favor? Take a minute and tell us about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So Kamal Aluwalia, I'm the president at Eightfold, and as you were chatting earlier, an avid golfer. Tiger is scared of playing with me. Did recover through a surgery through my neck during this awful COVID year. And really looking forward to January 1st, 2021. And something that I've been telling recently, there are three toughest jobs in the country this year. Number one was clearly finding a cure for the coronavirus. Number two was counting votes in the US election. And the third is being an HR leader in this godforsaken year. Nothing could have prepared us for it, but I'm just amazed by how all of us have weathered through that. So thank you for your time. Looking forward to the discussion.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. One of the things that I was saying earlier on is you've got your top three jobs. One of the things I was saying earlier on the summer was everybody was talking about our frontline workers, our essential workers, things like that, and talking about those who are serving on the front lines. And like, thank you to the nurses, thank you to the doctors, thank you. And I said every time I felt this urge to say, and thank you to the people who hired them and who are paying them and who are making sure they're taken care of on the back end. Like they're never going to get applause in the public stage, and no one's going to buy them, lunch or gas or whatever else they're doing, but they're doing the good work that makes sure everybody else is able to be served. And so I'm thankful again for the people listening in. They're that audience we're talking to, and we appreciate you for what you're doing. So
absolutely.
Let's talk about Eightfold a little bit. So Eightfold's been around for a couple of years, have done some good work, have a really impressive list of customers already. Give the audience a little insight into what Eightfold does, and so we can kick that around a little bit, talk about that in the conversation, because I already gave a little inkling, right? It's about skills, it's about recruiting, talent management, those kind of things. But give us, in your words, what Eightfold does.
Absolutely. So as you said, 4-year-old company, and as our Ashutosh Garg, our founder and CEO, used to talk about, still does actually, that every society needs three solid foundations: education, healthcare, and employment. We're here to solve for employment. And because of the AI background of our founders and the work that our engineering team in particular has done at Google, Facebook, YouTube, basically things at scale where billions of people are doing amazing things and the technology is working with the data, not necessarily with programming, right? So different speed, different scale. How do we take all of that and put it to service of everyone in the world? So the overall thing of solving for employment drove us to actually coalesce around right career for everyone in the world. And the adjustments that we thought we need to make, so we really went back to the first principles, that how do you actually make this thing work? Because there are opportunities, and simply that they are not always accessible to everyone. And it works on both sides. For an individual, that how do I have the career of my choice? And with millennials and half the population now, what we will see is people want multiple careers, not just multiple jobs, right? So it's the, how do I get from here to there? And second one is, I think a lot of our HR infrastructure has been very top down. that I'll tell you what you should be doing versus empowering people to pursue different things, learn things, and then grow with your company, not just having to keep going outside. So we went with that approach. So what we built was a single platform powered by AI for all of talent. So on one side, the company and the CEO knows what my employees are capable of doing, not just what they have done, but what they are capable of doing. And then if I'm changing my business strategy, which is what is happening with COVID this year, right? In some areas, you're having to think differently about remote work. My team is now completely distributed. Business is fine, but how do I do the collaboration? All those things, how do I solve for the employees? Where I need to go for talent, how do I go outside? If I need to bring in contingent workers, how do I bring those inside? Across the board, how do I become more and more efficient? But more importantly, dramatically change the candidate experience, the employee experience, so they can do everything in the self-service fashion, right? Just like we're all used to with Amazon and Uber and Netflix, etc. How do we bring that consumer grade experience to all of us for something that's extremely important because employment is important. So that's essentially what we have built. So look at us as a AI company that's layered on top of your existing HR tech stack, ATS or HRIS. And we are here to actually solve the things that have not been done and solve them at scale so that every single decision is thoughtful with as much insights as possible. Then the fun part has been in the time that we came through out of our stealth mode less than 3 years ago. We are already in 4 continents, 25 countries, 15 languages with users in 110 countries. So it's been busy times for the team.
Goodness gracious, not standing still, it sounds like. So you touched on a couple of things there, and one of the things that really gets me is in the past, many of the tools that we've built are built to serve our needs as employers, or in my experience as a recruiter, my experience or my needs as a recruiter. We'll make it's a workflow process or a tool focused around that. It's not focused around really helping us to serve the candidates in a better way, to get them a better experience, to really enable them, as you're saying, to put the power in their hands, the employees or the candidates. And that's one of the things that really excites me about some of the things that AI allows us to do. It enables that. It enables those opportunities to really scale up these experiences, to make sure everyone has an experience that is unique to them, but at the same time is standardized somewhat. So they're not getting favoritism because they're buddies with the recruiter, or they're not getting favoritism because they went to this university, but they get an opportunity to really show what they can do and stand out on their own merits and their own skills, as you were saying a minute ago, their own capabilities, not just based on how well they can talk the talk or how well they can sell themselves in an interview or something like that. That really excites me to think about a fairer and more equitable hiring process built on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the gist of it, right? How do we solve for both? And that's essentially what we are able to do. So we have built this capability matrix, and that is focused on learnability. And we have scoured, 1.5 billion profiles on a global scale. That has led to us knowing about 1.4 million skills, 500,000 unique titles. And all of this learning from this global data set is all geared towards what are people capable of doing? What can they learn? And what are the adjacent skills? And how easy is it for them to actually, and you touched upon equality a fair bit. That's exactly the thing, that if we are able to give a fair chance to everyone, there is no dearth of talent, because it is what it is, right? I mean, data scientists aren't growing on trees outside. At least they're not in California. They may be in Alabama.
We'll talk about that later, maybe.
But that's, I think, the key, that how do we hire for potential and do it with fairness to everyone and make life easier, right? Recruiter's job is actually one of the toughest jobs. And what I keep hearing from actually people who've been doing it for a lot of years is some of the work is actually soul searching. You're hunting down people in evenings and weekends to get them to actually sign up for an interview, and then you're chasing your interviewers for the scheduling part, right? And then every system is different, and you're always starting from scratch on how to actually cultivate the pipeline. And then the job requirements are all over the place, more like a laundry list. All of these things with the data that's available now. So with the scalability matrix, right? So the one is the learnability. So with our AI, we can check validated skills, missing skills, inferred skills. They didn't say that in their resume, but we know they are there, and missing skills. So it becomes a lot easier for everyone. And then share that with the candidate also. So they also know where they stand. Make it all data driven, factual.
Thinking about that idea of sharing that data back with the candidates. And I think about all the times that we're interviewing and people are like, well, you don't tell them why they didn't get it, or you don't give them any information, but that creates this us versus them kind of experience for recruiters and for candidates, because you're like, well, we didn't pick them because there was someone who had a couple more years of experience. But in the past, the advice for companies that I worked for was like, well, we just don't tell them that. Just tell them that they were not selected and thanks, but no thanks. But the problem is for that candidate, they are left to just try to guess what that thing was. And they might think it was something nefarious, something, hey, we didn't like them for some reason, or it might have just been, hey, they had two more years of really good hands-on experience that you didn't have, but you were right there. You were the silver medalist, the runner-up. And I think helping people to see where they stand in that process will create, again, better relationships, better experiences, not just better experiences, but better relationships for the people that we're trying to hire. Nobody sets out as a recruiter to say, how can I make sure that at the end of the day, every candidate we didn't pick is upset, is angry, feels disappointed. No one does that, but it ends up being that way because we don't, in the past, haven't had the tools to do that in a scalable way. And we don't also just make it a priority to think about how can we give them information, how can we give them tools, how can we give them insight and transparency so they know where they stand.
You're so spot on. And the other part is human psyche is, one is, of course, where do I stand? And nobody lies hating that, no, you're not good enough. So we thought a lot, and all of us brought our experiences to the table, just like you're sharing. So what we have done with our career site is actually one of the best things I like about our whole suite. Because the whole intent here is, number one is 80% of the people apply to the wrong job, right? And the bigger the brand, where you don't know people and all that stuff, is hard. And even for employees, right? If you're in sales, how do you know who's hiring in engineering or support team or customer success? So when you don't know, you end up, how do you find the right job? And then what we thought was, okay, the experience needs to be, folks, here's my capability. You know your company better. You know what you're looking for. Tell me if there's a job that fits my capabilities, right? So you upload your resume. In a few seconds, here are the jobs that are available where you are a great fit. And we'll tell you exactly why. Because of the things that you've done here. Let's say if we're talking about broadcasting, right? Ben, we've read your book, or you're an author, you have your podcast, you actually do all these shows. So you're very articulate. It is all around the HR. Plus, you were a recruiter. So you know the domain. You're very good in actually talking about it and communicating about it. And you have a great personality. And oh, by the way, other broadcasters that we have seen who have been successful brought these things that they could empathize, not just from a theoretical standpoint, they had lived and done the same thing. If I were to tell you that says would love to actually have you come on and start a new broadcasting thing because especially with your book and with AI being prominent, right? That's a very different conversation. Now you're paying attention to what I'm saying. But if it is done within minutes, and then you say, yeah, this makes sense. And then you say, okay, I'm interested. And now in the next 30 seconds, you can pick the next 30-minute slot available for a live interview. Within 5 minutes, you have made more progress than thousands of candidates will make ever with any of the large companies. Right? That's the candidate experience in the digital world. When you talk about digital transformation in HR, this is digital transformation in HR.
That number you dropped a minute ago, that 80% of people apply for the wrong jobs.
Yeah.
I'm having some flashbacks, a little bit of cold sweats here, thinking back to I post a job and anybody and everybody would apply for it if it seemed like something that was basic enough. But the problem is, like, there might be another job that you just didn't see that's a great fit for you, and you just didn't see the list because you hit the easy apply button, or you did something like that. And that's one of the things that I've struggled with in the last few years is we have, with the pendulum has swung, so like, let's make it as easy as possible for people to apply, but then we've just made it harder for recruiters then to down select to the right candidates, again, and broadly, just in general, right? Again, the insights we're talking about, I want to get to skills in a minute, but the insights you can get when you can see how you compare against other people, that helps people to make better decisions about whether they should apply or not. And there's some, my brain's going in a couple different directions here to think about how this could help. Let's start with the skills piece for a second, because you mentioned the different categories a minute ago, and I want to see if you could go a little deeper and explain what those are for the audience who aren't data nerds like us. Talk about the inferred skills, explicit, those kinds of skills, because they might not realize what those are on a resume, and I want to help understand how those tie into, if I'm going to go apply for a job, it can see those kinds of things about me, even things I didn't say. I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. So what we have underneath the data, and then I'll share with you how it manifests itself. We have models that are able to accurately predict what people are capable of doing next. Of all these people that we have, whose profiles we have reviewed and their career paths, right? That they went to this school, then job one, company one, job two, company two. How long did it take them to actually progress, get promoted? Because over a period of time, all these things have more meaning and substance than how somebody will do in a job interview over 30 minutes, an hour, or through a video interview, which is happening more and more. Mm-hmm. So each of those things, once we see those patterns, we are able to then repeat it every single time. Then the algorithms do not include anybody's age, sex, ethnicity, pedigree, any of those things in the background, right? So the matching is purely, as you said earlier, it is purely based on what somebody is capable of doing, nothing else. So now we take all of that, and now we're saying, okay, we know all of these things because, right, I mean, you take a big bank, anybody who's been in a bank for 2 years is suddenly a VP. In other companies, right, it can take you 10 years or 15 years to become a VP. So one VP is not the same as other. All that is normalized. Then comes in, let's say it's a technical role. If you get an engineer from Google, they'll talk about MapReduce in their resume, which is a big data solution. If you get somebody from Facebook, they'll talk about Hive. Now, thing is, if you've learned one, it's much easier for you to learn the next one. Right? So these are all adjacent skills, and the learnability is very easy because a couple of months at best, and you'll have a very good running knowledge of the next system. So having all that information allows us to say that, okay, let's say we are hiring a salesperson from Salesforce, 50,000 company, 20,000 salespeople, and over the 20 years of its existence, a lot of them have left and gone various places, right? So we've seen a lot of salespeople from a company, Salesforce. Now, we know Salesforce founded the SaaS solution, so they all know the subscription pricing. They know how to do multi-year deals. They all know solution selling because now Salesforce has a very big portfolio. All of these are building blocks that are all we know from knowing everything about Salesforce. Now we get a resume of someone from sales team at Salesforce who's been there 4 or 5 years. Now they'll talk about, okay, I did this, large accounts, this thing, but then what they haven't said, which we know, is they are good at solution selling. They are good at relationships, right? So there are a lot of these things that we have inferred from other people that may not have been specified here, but we can derive that. And then we have also seen that a lot of salespeople who come from Salesforce have also become very good leaders in the sales leadership stuff. Right? Because they're bringing a very good mix of leadership capabilities and the functional execution thing. And they've also been a high growth environment for a long time. So these are all things that come together. And everybody has been told to write a resume in 1 to 2 pages, right? So you start skipping details. So all these things, which used to be earlier on in your career, maybe took half a page on the resume, now are 2 lines on your resume. So you've actually you've thrown away valuable information. So what we do with all this is validated skills that, yep, this person is claiming they know complex selling. And yes, we have seen others also who've done a good job of that. Missing skills, this person has not talked about subscription deals, but we know that Salesforce runs that business. So these are other things that they also know, which are relevant to your job requirements. And then stuff that you want, but is not mentioned here. And the other one is make sure you validate. They are claiming that they are very good with migration technologies or AI. But there's only so much we have seen, which is on the same class, machine learning type stuff or deep neural networks are not being seen from Salesforce, right? So make sure that you have someone in your data science team, talk to them about that to see how deep is their knowledge. And if you have all that information, it becomes so much easier for the recruiter, for the hiring manager, how to construct the interview panel. And if you share that same guidance with the candidate, they also know what they're walking in with.
That is incredible. That's incredible. Not just to have the picture of a company and to be able to match up people against that, but also to say, hey, in general, people who are in this role, if you have this skill, we expect you to have these other two, because 90% of the resumes that we've seen, if you have A, you're going to also have B and C. But even if someone forgets to put it on there, or like you said, I didn't even think about that piece where someone's like, you got to get it down to a page or down to 2 pages. Newsflash, you don't have to. Okay, it doesn't. Most people aren't printing resumes anymore, so it doesn't hurt you to have a 3-page resume. It makes it easier for us to search as employers and to find what you have out there. But I'm thinking about the data that's people are like, well, I had a job, and so I'm going to boil that down to 2 or 3 lines, 2 or 3 sentences on a resume, and they're not able to give full credence to all of the things they did, to all the projects they ran, to all the experiences they had. They're boiling it down to the lowest common denominator, whatever they think is most relevant for that employer, which may or may not land properly. So it gives you a chance to see deeper into that. And again, consider people who might otherwise, they might be great at the job, but not great at writing a resume. That's one of the things that we used to hire a lot of foreign military, and they had never had to write a resume. And so for them, it was, they just list out a bunch of tasks and things they did in their role, but they were actually, it was very easy to see how they could adapt over into this new position. And so I think of all these different areas where people are, it's smoothing over some of those human errors, either on the recruiter side or on the candidate side, or even, we haven't talked much about the employee side of this, but an employee that's like, what do I want to be next? It might help them to see that path, that they don't have any female lead engineers in their company, but it can help them to chart that path and figure out that they are actually, there's only a small delta between their skills now and where they could be in that role. And it might encourage them to take that step, even though no one's ever done that and they don't have a role model currently. They can be that person to step up. So I'm thinking of all these different use cases. That was kind of spilling out of my mouth that help us to solve some of those problems that, again, ATS, those kind of tools are really great for what they're meant for, but they're more of a workflow tool than about helping candidates to have a good experience and to figure out what job to apply for.
That you're exactly right. And that's the issue, right? That all these past legacy systems, ATS and HRIS, were largely meant for compliance, reporting, and the workflow piece. Not that how do I move the ball forward. And that's essentially what we're providing, not to rip out those investments, but how do we actually solve for the business and the individuals. And the other thing that you mentioned, the context, right, on why something matters. Because the unfortunate problems with the HR tech stack today is this: it's littered with point solutions. But the core problem is resumes are useless and job descriptions are even worse. And basically we keep trying to do keyword Boolean search across these two things, so garbage in, garbage out. And I'll tell you one of the company, I won't tell you the name of this company. They do the reviews. They encourage company to come and post reviews on the company and all that, employees to post review. For a company like Whiterabbit.ai, they recommended to me every job from president to sales to product management to the office admin. And you can think Whiterabbit.ai, right? So yes, I'm sure I'm a good fit to be the office admin, but it's probably AI tripping them up. And that's basically the thoughtlessness. So number one is that what exactly are we using to help the candidates? Second part is people don't leave their current jobs to do the same thing in their next role. And yet all of our investment is for exactly that. Hey, Salesforce admin, come do the same thing and we'll give you another 10-15% more, right? And then we are all surprised why they leave. Third piece is you cannot hire your way through poor retention. We have to take care of the employees. And the last part is we are all well intentioned, but we do bring our biases into the hiring decision or promoting decisions. And that's where we want to use AI to actually make it easy for everyone and really unlock the opportunity. This time, hopefully, things are staying on the table. Really make big strides on DE&I.
Wrote that down. People don't leave their job to do the same thing for the next company, because that is, I often kind of poke fun at some of the things that every company does, even though they know it's the wrong thing to do. They do it anyway. Like, oh, you've been here for this period of time, you should be a manager now. Even though they're perfectly happy at being an individual contributor, we're just going to move them to a manager role because they've been here for some arbitrary length of time. And like, that's the same kind of thing you're talking about here. Yep. We move people, we hire them thinking they're great at this. We're going to hire them for this, and they're never going to want to do anything else. They're never going to want to move up. They're never going to want to build out some new capabilities, to use the phrase you've been using. It's an opportunity there for us to think about people's careers as this continuum, not just as this, they're going to take this one thing and repeat it, copy, repeat over and over again. But how do we help them see that path ahead? How do we help them see what opportunities are available and what sort of things are out there? And again, part of that, I think in the past, it's hard to do that, especially for a very large organization, because those career paths could look like any sort of, mismatch of things just stuck together. And having the data, having the insights can help people to see that in a better way, can help them to see that and really get a more prescriptive sort of path or a set of paths that they can pick from, instead of feeling like I only have this ring of people around me that I can look at for examples, and none of them are doing that thing that I want to do. So it must not be possible. I guess I have to go somewhere else to do that.
Yep.
In fact, it might be. And it's just making that transparent, making it visible to them so they know that's a choice. That's an option to go and use that capability they have and build a new capability in that position where they want to go.
Exactly.
All right. You've wrote down I've got so many notes from this conversation over here. One of the things that I loved was we can help figure out what people's capabilities are and what their next capabilities are too. I think that's the thing that we sometimes miss out on. Again, it's kind of an extension of what I was just, that piece you shared a minute ago, but helping people see what that next capability is and helping them to see and envision that career path. So, all right, goodness, I've loved this. I'm having so much fun over here, but I know we're close on time. So if someone is curious about Eightfold, wants to know more about what you and the company have done, wants to check out your book, any of those kinds of things, what's the best way to do that?
So Eightfold.ai, plus my email is kamal@eightfold.ai. And also, the thing is, we've talked a lot about the concepts and what we have done, but the king here is, since we are a data company, right, we do measure everything. So some of the things that I wanted to share with you was how are we delivering the outcomes and how do we bucketize those, right? So these are across days to fill, diversity, recruiter efficiency, quality of candidates, cost of hire, efficacy of your career site, which is actually the easiest thing. And to serve those, we basically built the full suite. That includes hiring from all channels, past candidates, diversity candidates, veterans, scheduling, event management, CRM, interview feedback, everything that makes life easier for both the candidate and the recruiter and the manager, right? Because that's how we get AI to serve us adequately. And a bunch of customers that have benefited. So happy to actually compare notes. And I'm really looking forward to your book as well. Looking forward to learning from you.
Wonderful. Hey, you and I, again, before everybody else got the benefit of seeing us here live, we were chatting about, oh, you had a book too? Oh, cool. We're going to do a book club after this, have our own little reading club going on. So, Kamal, it's been so much fun chatting with you, learning about Eightfold and everything the company's doing. As you heard, everybody, Eightfold.ai. You can check out the website, learn more, connect with them, have a conversation if you want to dig deeper. So thank you for what you're doing, solving no small problems. As you started out, you talked about things like solving employment as a bigger societal issue. And I'm excited to see what you've done so far and what's up next. So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
What's next for you, Ben? It's coming to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for the discussion today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some good notes and things. Goodness, I was planning to talk like hiring more tactically, and we ended up talking big picture, which was so much fun to think about the impact we can have, not just on each individual, but scaling that across communities, states, cities, all that other fun stuff, and just seeing the impact we can have on people. There's so much opportunity out there to do this better than we've done it in the past, and I'm excited to think that 2021 we're going to do that. We're going to do that. Get out of this year and what it's brought us. We're going to get into next year at looking for new ways to innovate and bring some new value to people. So thank you so much for joining me. Again, this is our last episode for the year. We will be coming back in January with more new, interesting conversations and some other new fun stuff I can't wait to share with you. So thank you for joining me. I appreciate each of you for listening in, and we'll catch you next time on HR Tech Talks.